Hey everybody, this is True Demon, the Devil Stockbroker. I wanted to give a bit of context in a video on my tweet from last night. I published this video, or I published that tweet talking about some of the indicators on AMC, specifically things like the unbalanced volume. And we talk about unbalanced volume a lot here. Looking at the OBV, what I was talking about earlier was that there's this consistent pattern in AMC, and you could check this on a ton of other meme stocks. This applies to BlackBerry, BB stock, GameStop, GME, Senseonics did this. So let's just kind of go down the list. Progenity did this, SetSens, but what what I noticed about these stocks in particular was there was this behavior where the OBV would create a technical pattern, the same way as we look for channels and falling wedges and things like that in our price charts. I noticed a technical pattern uh, in the OBV. So that's what I was highlighting in that tweet, and I wanted to explain it a little bit here so that we can actually like illustrate it in a bit more detail. Here's the point in time when AMC was making its preparations basically for its very first run. This peak here was the first one in line where it had established a higher high after coming off of a low and then swung back down, consolidated, and then peaked again. And like keep in mind these are a difference of like $2.50. Like this wasn't a huge price move. I mean, it's 100% compared to where it was trading, but considering AMC's chart in the past had been like in excess of $10, $20, it was like really oversold. So this first timeline stuck out to me because the OBV created a huge lift in it, a big peak, and we've seen this in other stocks where these squeeze plays are what we're targeting. So with the OBV, what I looked for, and I noticed a consistent pattern, was that OBV would peak and it would start to consolidate downward very slowly, but not keep up with the price until a sudden sell-off, which was a big scary sell-off. This would have been a roughly 15 or 20% fall over the course of this trading week, and the OBV came down to its lowest point right here that we have circled. And then all of a sudden, over the next two trading weeks, the OBV cranked up because volume came into the stock and buyers stepped in. The price lifted only about, it was only about $1.50. So if I were to draw a line from here to here, just to this high point on the OBV, oh, I see. It was because the price was so low, down to $1.15. So it was like a 60% move. Um, but the OBV, the point is that the OBV cracked through both of these levels, just like you would look for a breakout in a falling wedge. It broke down below and then cracked straight through both levels right away. And then immediately after that, the whole next trading week was a huge run all the way from $2.50 all the way up to oh, I guess I drew the lines backwards. I'll fix this. So the whole run altogether was 857% rise. If we looked at it from just the point where the OBV crossed, or at least touched that upper level, that was a 800 and 750. And from the point that OBV was clearly breaking out was about still 750. So there was plenty of entry points that if we were watching this OBV that this would have been an opportunity. But nobody had context for this pattern because there's been no precedent. The whole time OBV moved with the stock, more or less, right? And that's what you see with just about every other stock, Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, whatever. The OBV tracks with the price for the most part. Now, when we go on to the second timeline, this is from one peak to the next. So the first timeline that we drew here, from one peak to the next peak, this is the exact same thing. Second timeline is from peak to peak, and we have the same situation: big sell off. We establish a low, and then swing back up for the to the top, swing back to the low, swing back to the top. It's classic wedge, right? And then at some point, there's a big sell off that causes us to break through the bottom of the wedge, and OBV breaks trend. And for a moment, the OBV is actually moving with the price. This is actually a swing that perfectly lines up with the drop in price. But the thing is that it doesn't fall down to the same level as the previous swing did. And we're still trading at a balance that's, geez, like this was at a negative balance of 100 million, and this one at this low was trading at an excess and a positive balance of 2.45 billion. And as soon as we cracked through both of those levels, just in a single trading week, cracked through both of those levels on May 13th, this would have been the buy signal. Now, I made a call out on May 25th when I saw us break through this resistance here because we were challenging the highs from the squeeze, and this was when I called out AMC for a big squeeze. But if I had been watching OBV at the time, I would have actually noted this pattern matched up with this, and we could see that we had had a breakout earlier on May 13th. So with OBV cracking through both of these levels, we consolidated for one more trading week and then broke through to the new highs all the way up to the balance was 5.29 or 5.3 billion roughly, and the price went all the way screaming up to $72 at that point. And now we're looking at the final timeline, the third timeline, what's most recent. We have the same wedge setup with the OBV. This time we're in a falling, narrowing channel or falling wedge. I call it a channel just because it's not going to break below. It's not going to break below $5, but this is the same setup. Big falling wedge pattern. This is very timely. Okay. It's crossing this channel again, so it's this is just TradingView alerting me. So that's very timely. But I'll go ahead and get through this explanation first. So as AMC consolidated through this entire period, we hit our highest our most recent high at 44 or $46 thereabouts, and then fell from there. What we ended up forming was a falling wedge. And ever since we broke below that, note what the OBV did. The OBV was going perfectly sideways. It bounced around, but it was more or less sideways with supports, tapping supports each time. And then the final time that it broke through support, only in this last time with a huge surge of selling volume, did the on balance volume finally break down below its previous lows. But again, it didn't break down past this point. It got close, but it never broke through it. And now buyers are stepping in. We've crossed up through into this channel once again. So this is an exact mirror of what we saw in May. And that's why this has my attention. We've been watching things like short exempt volume. We've been watching the moving averages to look for indicators that the price is moving in our favor. But all of these things have all been delayed. We've only gotten entries by doing that. We're usually a few days late to the party, and by that point, options are priced in, and they get really expensive really quickly. And because of that, we miss out on some opportunities. So now that we know this, now that we're looking for the OBV to do this, this is why I think that this breakout is happening. And there's an additional piece to this, and that's what these timelines are all about. So you note that I drew these timelines from peak to peak. First timeline is from November 24th all the way to January 27th, the day of the peak, and then from January 27th all the way to June 3rd, the peak in June. And now the third timeline. Where did this come from? Well, what I did was I took the first timeline and I multiplied it by 2. And what I found is that the if I took these two timelines and laid them over top of each other and brought them to the peak, then they end right on the first day of the major surge. And then one trading week later, if I add one trading week, that brings me to the peak. And look at how these line up. So this would be a time. So if I multiply the timelines, the first timeline times 2, it matches up perfectly with the second timeline minus the beginning of the run. So if I add that trading week, that brings me to when the peak occurs. So now I'm speculating that if I take, since these are multiples of 2, if I take the second timeline, multiply it by 2, and then add 2 trading weeks, I get my third timeline. And if there's any truth at all to the cycle theory, then this might be it. Like this might be the beginning of the run. And this is like this is literally like the most tinfoil hat theory that I've ever come up with. It's stupidly ridiculous. There's nothing documented in any trading books anywhere that I'm aware of that can talk about this or illustrate this to anyone. But seeing this huge move today really is confirming a lot of my biases. And now I'm just waiting for volume to come into the stock and lift this OBV through both of these levels. And what I've already got calls that are set for my price targets. I've got some calls for the early 20s, and I've got some additional ones for 30s way out in March. But like if this theory is correct, then what we will first see is we'll see a jump in the price. It'll probably go past 22 dollars, something like that. The OBV will lift, and that will be a direct result of volume coming into the stock. So we'll see a big increase in volume. The price will lift um, a little bit being relative to where it's currently trading at. Um, so I'm guessing like a 50% increase over the next 1 or 2 trading weeks. And then at some point in the middle of this is when we'll see some consolidation, but the OBV will be trading far above its previous levels here. And as soon as we crack through this resistance, it's pretty much out of control. And that sums up the entire theory that I have right here. It's strange how this has worked out, um, but it really it really does illustrate to me power that algorithms have in the market, because for something like this to line up so perfectly, this can't be random. This can't be a random occurrence. It just doesn't seem feasible to me. And the fact that we've seen the price falling so consistency while the balance of shares is so high and just refuses to move with the price like it did before, it only tells me that like these plateaus mean something, and it means accumulation, to put it simply, that institutions, whoever knows what the value of this truly is holding on to every share that they can get. And whatever shorts they're using to push the price down and then accumulate at the bottom and then let it run for a while, short it at the top, accumulate at the bottom, and then do the same thing over and over and over again until they can encourage or discourage enough retail traders to take their shares. And this has been the most severe sell off that we've seen since. I really think that this is actually the beginning of our next move. I can't help but be extremely bullish and maybe a little bit not paranoid, but, like, this is falling into the realm of confirmation bias, where if I see the OBV crack through the top, I could be totally wrong, okay? Like, don't just trust this because there's no precedent for this that I'm aware of. I don't know enough about the stock market or trading in general to tell you that this is some guaranteed theory. There's no such thing. But this is really compelling to me because the possibility for this to just be a random chance event is slim and none.